What's up, motherfuckers? Today I just wanted to go over how I made a trigger system using a signals and a grid map in Godot. And yeah, so here's a little function that I made. Here's the main magic of everything. It sets all the IDs of all the entities that are going to be triggered. And yeah, and right here, let me see. I have the trigger code, and right here I have the door code and the spawner code right here. So I'm going to go over a door and a spawner today, and the motion trigger, and I'll show like a quick little tutorial of how to set them up inside a test level I made right here. And this is already built. Later on in the video I'll show before all this was done and all the triggers were set up. Before it was just an empty level, just the player spawn in it, and that's it. But yeah, I spent a while working on this video because I recorded a bunch and I just explained stuff just like complete dog ass. I was not proud of my explanations, but I think now it's a bit more clear. Let me know if anything is unclear in the comments, and yeah, just let me know because I want to know if what I'm saying is actually getting through to people. Yeah. So I hope this helps, and here's how to set up triggers with grid maps using signals. Hell yeah! The first thing I do in the grid map script is I grab the paths to the scenes I want to instance. In this case, these will be the door and the spawner scenes. And yeah, I'll be able to use those later for instancing. And after that, I'll get an array of all the cells that are used up by the meshes with certain IDs, 12 and 13 for the doors and spawners in this case. And just in case you don't know, what the getUseCellsById function does is it returns an array of vector 3s of all the cells that are used up by a certain mesh. I then use those arrays to pass into a function that I call entityReplace, and that's where all the magic will happen in this script. I'll go over it right now. So here's my entityReplace function. It works very similarly to a basic tile replace, in that I just go through the array of vector 3s and I replace each one with a new instance. So right here I do the same thing. I go through each one and replace each one with a new instance, but then I also have to check if I could set an ID on it, because I'm using an ID system to trigger a bunch of doors or any type of entities at once. So right here I check if there's a new instance, if it's not null, and I also check if it has that method set ID. It also just prints some message out that just tells me that it just doesn't have one. So if that's true, then I'll go through and I'll evaluate if tiles are next to each other. So if two cells are next to each other, they're going to get the same ID. So first thing I'll do is I'll subtract the current tile from the old tile. So let's say it starts off with 12, 0, and negative 24. Let's say that was the first tile. So the next tile would be something like maybe 13, 0, negative 24. So if it subtracts that, it'll just have 0, it'll have 1, 0, 0 basically, and then it will be within that range. So if it's within that range, it'll just set it to the first one, which is 12, 0, and negative 24. So that's what's pretty nice about this. And yeah, so with the range, that's basically what tile V does, is it's just the last tile, and this is the current tile, and it just it's basically the evaluator of whether or not we have an adjacent tile as the next one, or as the current one. So a big key to getting this check to work is to find the absolute value of the subtraction that we found from subtracting the last tile from the current tile. So we want to find the absolute value of the subtraction just to make sure that's within a certain range. Because if we don't take the absolute value, it could be negative, it could be positive. We don't know. We want to always be positive. We always want to be the absolute distance from it. So right here, we're going to check if the tile, we're going to check each axis and check with it if it's within that range of each axis. If, you know how I said this one was 12, 0, negative 24, and let's say the next one is 13, 0, negative 24. So if you subtracted, let's say, the last one, 12 minus 13, we would actually have negative 1. So we want to have just 1 instead, just to make sure that it's within the range. So 1 is less than or equal to 1, 0 is less than or equal to 1, and 0 is less than or equal to 1. So it's going to go through, and bam, it's going to evaluate it. So it'll say set ID, tile V, and then it'll just set all the ones that are adjacent to that one, or in a series of that one, to the original ID. So that's the whole point of the ranger. So each time we evaluate each tile and we set it to the original ID, we're also increasing the range. So what happens is, like I'll check the next tile, basically I plus 1, and if that is less than the tile array.size, then I'll evaluate the next tile. So basically the next tile will be tile v minus tile array I plus 1. And yeah. So after that, if the ranger is on the certain axis is equal to the absolute value of the next one minus 1, so basically if it's like one tile away from the next one, then the ranger.x will be added by 1. So each time we're evaluating, the range that we're checking is also growing, so that we could check a bunch of different doors or spawners in a series of each other. So as you can see, this actually works right here. So I'm able to check all these doors in a series, and they all get checked each one. So yeah, and yeah. So basically, first we check this if they're adjacent. If they're not adjacent, then we reset the tile v to like a new group. So basically, it begins a new group of tiles, which happens, let's say, right here. So it gets 0, 0, negative 15. So right here, we'll get that 0, 0, negative 15, and then that instance will get that one, and then the ranger will be reset as well. So even though the ranger grows as we check adjacent tiles, the ranger will reset once we find one that's not adjacent. So yeah. So basically the ranger and the tile V are constantly changing each time. Well, not constantly, but yeah. So now I'll go over the thing that I use to trigger. So you can't really put this as a part of the grid map. You have to put this somewhere else. So what I did is I just made like an added triggers thing to like my level, and what it does is it just basically sends out a few like array of like stuff that you add in, and sends like signals out to like each one you want to trigger. So I'll go over that right now. So inside my trigger class or my trigger node, I have a script attached that has 3 arrays. So these are basically for sending out information to the entities I replaced in the map, in the grid map. And yeah, so it has an ID target, which will target the locations in the map. So it'll be like map coordinates. So let's see, I'll play one. I think I have it like printing. I'll play the one I was using. So bam. So I'll go up and look at all of them. So see right here, these aren't doors or anything, but right here you can see that these are the map coordinates that are in the grid map. So negative 12, 0, and negative 26. So that's what they are. And then the ID targets will target those. So to target this one, I'll show you inside the level. Here's a motion trigger. And this one targets negative 12, 0, negative 26. So with the IDs, so it'll be an array of IDs. And yeah, the first one is like 0, 0, negative 15. The second one's negative 4, 0, negative 15. And the third one is negative 12, 0, negative 26. So that's how it targets all of them. So it could target like any type of triggers I want. So that's what ID targets are. It just like targets the map coordinates, and it finds a certain point, and it like targets whichever ID it finds, and whichever ID you input basically. And here's the target signal array that I have. So with each one, they can be sent to different types of nodes. So even in this one, here's a good example. The first one is sent to a door right here, or the first two. Basically, I'm targeting both halves of the door. And then the second one, the third signal, is sent for a spawner, for a monster spawn. That's what I set them for. So you could actually set different signals using this. So that's just kind of nice about it. You could just do it all from this little thing right here, and you don't even have. It's actually very easy to use. As the only crappy part is just trying to find exactly where the first one is. Like right here is negative 12, and stuff. Yeah, it's not as hard to find first. The ID part is the hardest part, but once you know what you're targeting, you could just like set whatever signal you want to send. And that's pretty nice. And what's also really cool about it is that I'm also sending dictionaries to those entities that are replaced by the map. And right here you can see for the dictionary, for the first door, I set the direction. I wanted them to open upwards, and by default they open downwards. So with the dictionary, I was able to tell it to open upwards, which I set 10,000 in the Y direction. I don't really care. And basically, it's a shoe an array upwards, and it hits that, so then it just starts moving up. And then I also set the time that the door takes to open. If I set it to a lesser time, it would open faster. If I set it to a longer time, it would open. It would take longer to open. So yeah, so it just like changes the speed basically that opens that. And yeah, so right here, here's where the magic happens. So if a Kennebec body walks through it, and I also check if the body is a player, then I'm gonna create a barrier check later for this. And but for now, that was just a placeholder. And yeah, so if the body is Kennebec body, and it'll trigger this and send out it'll send out the entire like array of signals. They're all gonna be the same size, so I only have to check one of their sizes. And if they are not the same size, then I have a debug thing set up to like tell you, oh, you fucked up. They aren't the same size. So yeah. So basically, it just calls all them and just sends all those out, all the signals that you input through here. See, that's the size of 1. There's an array of size 3 on all of them. See, they're all equal sizes. Okay, so those were the triggers. So in the door script, what happens is that the door will receive a signal from the motion trigger that I just went over a little bit ago. And yeah, so after that, it just has a timer set up. Just goes in a certain direction based on the time. I basically have it when I set the velocity, its speed equals the distance dot length divided by time. The distance is the between the wall that the ray hits and the door itself. And let me see. I'll go over it right now. So here's the most important code that I want to go over. It gets an ID from when I went over the map, and here's the map code. So basically, you'll get like some type of like similar ID to this one, like maybe like I said before, 00 negative 15 or something, some weird like ID number like that. And yeah, so it checks if the ID is the same one as the door you're calling. And so it doesn't call all the doors in the entire level. And right here, it then checks if there is a dictionary. If there is a dictionary, then it doesn't have to have one. It could have an empty dictionary. And but if there is one, then it'll check if it has a time key and a direction key. So if it has a time key, then I reset the speed. And if it has a direction key, then I just like I think I have a function for reset direction, and yeah, so both of those work very well. And yeah, as you can see in the video, I think I could just play through right now and just show you. So I'll walk through one of the triggers, boom, moves downward, and boom, see here's a dictionary that I sent to it, it moves upward. So yeah, and there's all the enemies over here, they all spawned, and they're all attacking me and trying to kill my ass. But yeah. And I'll go over the spawner code right now, which is basically a perfect segue. That's all the code you really need to know. Basically, just getting the connection of the signal to the door, and then checking the ID if the ID is the door's ID, checking if it has a dictionary, and then just outright, just like triggering it basically. When the thing is created, that's when the door open function is triggered, and then when you walk through it, it triggers this function right here. So yeah, and I will go over the spawner code right now. So spawner code is very similar. It gets I forgot to go over this in the door. The door also has a set ID function, which is how it gets the ID from the grid map. So in the grid map, let me see. I'll just go over it one more time in case I haven't. So in the entity replace, I will set the I either set the new instance to like whoever the first one is in the group, or I set the ID to that, or I set the ID to the most current one I'm looking at. So if they're all scattered around, not really in a group, they'll all have their own IDs that I'll have to send out to actually trigger all of them. So, yeah, so that's what the set ID does. It just sets ID equals ID, and if I have debug mode on, then I print the IDs so I could actually try and find them. Which as you can see, I have the spawners debug mode on right now. So, okay, because I've just recently been getting the spawner code to all work because I keep adding new monsters. And yeah, so basically what it does is gets a signal once again, and then it calls spawn. So it checks the ID, so it doesn't trigger all the spawners. And yeah, and if the if it has a dictionary and the dictionary has rand, then it'll call rand monster. But if the dictionary exists and dictionary has monster, then it will call a different function. So let's go to monster pick. So here's the difference between both of them. So if I have rand in the dictionary, it doesn't matter what value it has, just as long as it has the rand key, it'll call rand monster, and it'll just cycle through all my monsters and just spawn each one individually. And I'm just using a match call for that, or match condition, or whatever. And up here for the monster pick, I have to give it a little bit more information, so I also have to give it a value as well. So it has a monster key as a string, and then I'm calling meaty, skitter, or jetties. That's just the name for my monsters in the game. I just have 3 right now. I'm still working on more, but yeah. So that's all my code for spawners and stuff. All right, so now I'll go over how to make a basic door. So right here, I made like a little level just for this. Here's my player. That's where my player is gonna spawn, and yeah, and this is basically 3 rooms. This will just be one basic door that'll like move in the default position or the default direction, which is downwards, and this one will open in a different direction that's upwards. That's not the default. And right over here, I'll spawn a bunch of enemies, and I'll just have 2 triggers. So one trigger will just open that door. I'll just show you just like an instance of just one door opening, or just one trigger activating a door. And this one will just be one trigger activating both a door and some spawners. So right here, and also right here, if you notice, these are pretty, like, this is pretty far. These are about like maybe 5 doors? I don't know. And yeah. And another thing, if you notice, this thing down here, it's only there so that the ray could actually touch something, or else it will like print that the ray was not able to hit anything, which it was. So yeah, and right here, let me see. Yeah, so basically that's it. Okay, so I'll make a basic door and get it to work right now. So right here, if we just place these 2 doors, I'll load up the level, and right here, that's the level. And as you can see, these are where the doors were. They're a little bit stretched. I don't really care. These are just some textures I pulled off of Google, and this is not gonna be in the final game I'm making. But yeah. So here's the doors. They're just like two units tall, and once I trigger them, they can move downwards. So right here, I just have to add a trigger to the map. I'll make a spatial. I'll call it added triggers. This is why I like to call them, actually, I caps on triggers. And right here, I'll instance a motion trigger. And as you can see, a bunch of arrays are there. So that's an ID target, and that's the target signal, and that's the dictionary changes. So right here, basically it's the size of 1. I could put 3 IDs in. So right here, I should probably turn the debugging mode on for the doors, which it is on, so that means it must have printed that. So door, -2, 0, and -4. So as you can see, they're both the same ID, even though they're 2 different doors. So once set it, so it's basically I just need to add -2, 0, and -4. Whoops, not -2, -4, and bam. And so that'll set that ID, and I need to send a signal to it called door open. And the dictionary changes. The dictionary could literally be anything. For now, I don't even think we need anything, honestly. It just needs to have more than 1. So what I could do is I could just set the time. I'll set a not float. I'll set a string. Put time. That'll be the key. And here's the value. I'll make it a float. Let's say it's, I'll make it a fast door, 1 second. So bam. So it's 1 second, and watch, it's already going to work. Wait, where'd I put the trigger? That's a big part. But yeah. So what's cool about the triggers, how I have them set up, is you could pretty much, I have them set to like just one like little tile at first. So I'll set up in the middle of these, and then I'll like just get to like stretch out to the whole hallway, and there it goes. And yeah, that's all I need for right now. Right here, trigger tutorial. Okay, here's where the door is. Bam! It's opening. And as you can see, like if I walk through it again, it's going to try activate again. But it's a little bit glitchy. And let me see. So I only want to run once. And I don't care if it's player activated or not. And boom. So it only runs once. So if you have it only set to run once, it'll only ever run once. Even though I'm constantly running through this signal right now, or this trigger. Yeah. So right here, I still need to set up this door, and still need to spawn these enemies. So as you can see, right here, I only sent, like, it was only an array of size 1, but over here, I can make an array of any size, actually. I could have it send out 100 different signals if I wanted to. So if I wanted to activate 100 different things all at once, I could do that. So that's what's pretty cool about this implementation. So right here, I'll add a bunch of doors. This time I will change it quite a bit. It'll be a little bit different from the last one. Let me see. I think that's the right spot for the doors. Yeah. So, okay. And over here I'll put a bunch of spawners down right next to each other. And all these spawners will activate even though there's a bunch of them. So that's about, I think, 25 right there. Yeah, 5 by 5. So there's going to be 25 enemies that are going to spawn. And that's just what I have them look like in the grid, and they'll be replaced as soon as the level starts up. So right here, I'll just get the door working first again. I need to add another motion trigger. And right here, I just need to change where it is. So I'll just set it to like -10. Where is it? And it should be about right there, yeah. Okay. And I'll put it over here in the middle, and then have it stretch out all the way, just so I could activate it. I'll have it stretch out this way too. Okay, so that way the player will run into it no matter what. Something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. And, yeah. So this one, it will have an array of size 2, but right now I'll just make it 1, 1, and 1. And right here, I'll make it, I have no idea what the IDs are on this door, so I'll check it real quick. So this illustrates a little problem with my implementation. So I guess it kind of bugs out a little bit if you ever hit, if it ever, I guess it evaluates 0, 0 first. So if anything's at 0, 0 something, then it'll evaluate that first, even though these are negative and actually lesser. So I guess it's not actually organized completely in order how Godot like evaluates all the tile IDs. But it doesn't matter. 2 IDs instead of just like maybe 5 IDs. I don't know, 6 IDs. I mean, it's still better than 2 is better than 6. So I just have to increase just for these doors. I just have to increase the size to 2 and just kind of deal with it, I guess. Because there's no way I could really change it to where it would actually fix that. Though there's probably a way, but fuck it. So I'll just make it -15, -4, 0, and -15. So I don't know why I did that. I thought it went completely in order, but I guess it bugs out when it hits something that has 0 in it. So I guess it always evaluates something at 0 first and then goes to the other ones. But that still doesn't really break my system. And my system still makes it a lot easier to just do all this real quick and get it all set up. So right here, I'll just send the signals door open to both of these. I'll get the spawners to work in a bit, but yeah, and I'll show you that the spawners can activate in the same fashion. But yeah, I just have to send these dictionaries, and I do have to like change how it opens up. So let me see. I'll remove that item. So bam, I'll set a string. No, wait. Yeah, that's right. So string, I'll put time. I'll make it. I'll make this a little bit longer. I'll show you that like if if you send different times, it'll like open differently. And I also have to send a string called direction to each of these. And I'll make it a vector 3. I want to make it open up, so I'll send something like extreme like that, just so it always works. And bam. And right here, I have to do the same thing on this dictionary. So I just set a string called time. I'll make it open at the... Well, actually, this is a good... I guess this is a good instance just to show like different times and how they affect the door. So you can see two different ones next to each other. Okay, so right here, I'll put direction again. And then vector 3. Doesn't really matter what value I put there. And I'll have it to run once. And bam. Let me see. So this will work. I already know it's going to. Bam. And then bam. See? So those are a little bit faster and those are a little bit slower. And right here I still have not activated all the spawn points. But yeah, as you can see, the doors are already working. I just had to send out 2 signals instead of 6. Even though Godot kind of fucked up on the fucking order I wanted. But yeah. Okay, so right over here, I'm gonna send a signal to all those guys. So basically, the signal that they have is, as you can see, it worked right here. Since they're not zeros, all 25 of them got -12, 0, -26. So I'll go over that right now. So there's a motion trigger. All I have to do is just add 1 signal to that. Add vector 3. So -12, 0, and -26. So bam. And right here, 3. So I just have to put monster spawn. And that's what their signal is. And right here, I'll throw in a dictionary. And I'll just make them all random. So rand. And I'll add that. And now I'll just spawn a bunch of random monsters once I activate this. So let's see. Wait, I didn't add that. I don't think I added that dictionary. I don't think I added that key value pair to the dictionary. Let me see. No, I did. Okay. Let's see real quick. Whoops, wrong level. Okay, open that door. And bam, let's open these. And see, look, there's a bunch of enemies now. I'm gonna try and kill them my ass. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. See? 25 enemies spawned right there. I didn't have to... I just had to put the spawn points in the grid map. And then I spawned them by using that trigger over there. So the only thing that sucks about this method is that you can't put a trigger... Or at least I have not figured out how to put a trigger inside the grid map. I just put it as an instance right here. So I just have it in the like little graphical space. Instead of the actual grid map itself. But I think it's fine. It doesn't take up too much. I could just kind of hide it over here so that it doesn't clutter the whole space. And bam. Have everything all nice and set up. Hell yeah.